November 21st, 4 p.m. Akaashi stood patiently outside the gym, his arms crossed and a slight hum escaping his lips. The sun was starting to dip below the horizon, casting a warm, orange-hued glow over everything. Inside the gym, sounds of Bokuto's footsteps and the sound of equipment being stacked up echoed through the building, mingling with the soft sounds of Akaashi's humming. The quiet descended as Bokuto emerged from the gym, a wide grin spreading across his face when he spotted Akaashi patiently waiting. Akaashi, too, found himself smiling back, unable to resist the infectious happiness that radiated from Bokuto. The gym door closed with a soft thudding sound behind the volleyball player, and silence fell between the pair. Akaashi observed as the silence stretched between him and Bokuto, a strange sense of concern beginning to gnaw at him. Over the past few days, he couldn't help but notice a change in Bokuto's behavior. Although the energetic boy was just as enthusiastic during practice, once they stepped out of the gym, Bokuto became calmer, almost subdued. He shook off those thoughts as the pair started to walk. In the late fall, a chilling breeze blew, its icy fingers penetrating their clothing and seeping into their bones. The sky above was a pale, overcast blue, and a fine layer of clouds scattered across the sky. The dry leaves, rustling softly with every gust of wind, provided a subtle, crunchy background noise to their walking. Bokuto said, "Yes, Akaashi." Akaashi opened his mouth to speak before reaching for his phone to check the time. While doing so, a message from Oikawa piqued his interest. "Fall asleep on your crush's shoulder." Akaashi thought it was an easy challenge to complete. He just had to convince Bokuto to come over to his house. "Do you want to come over to my house? I could help with your hoe." "Yes." Akaashi's eyes widened as he was cut off. He covered his mouth with his hand, trying to stifle his laugh. "Okay." After a few more minutes of walking, they finally arrived at Akaashi's house. The warm atmosphere inside the house was a stark contrast to the freezing air outside. Both Bokuto and Akaashi removed their coats and shoes, placing them neatly by the door. Then, they padded silently down the hallway toward the living room, the soft sound of their footsteps the only noise in the otherwise quiet house. Bokuto sat down, quickly getting comfortable on the couch. He had been to Akaashi's house multiple times before, so he was familiar of his surroundings. "Movie?" Akaashi offered, lifting up the sleek remote that was on the coffee table. Bokuto's eyes glimmered. He perked up a huge grin on his face. "Yes, there's a new movie I've been wanting to watch." Akaashi smiled in response before handing him the remote. He walked into his kitchen, rummaging around for some snacks. Once he was finished, he brought them back to the living room and settled on the couch next to Bokuto. Bokuto clicked the remote and started the movie, the sound of the opening credits filling the silent room. He settled back into the couch, the soft cushions molding slightly under his weight, his eyes focused on the screen with excitement as the film rolled on. Akaashi watched him, studying his face expressions to decide when to do the challenge. About halfway through the movie, he decided it was time. He gently leaned against Bokuto's shoulder, who acknowledged it almost immediately. Bokuto glanced down at Akaashi's peaceful expression and smiled. "So pretty," Bokuto whispered, except Akaashi heard it, the compliment turning his cheeks pink. Bokuto suddenly leaned forward and turned the movie off. In one swift motion, Bokuto scooped Akaashi up into a bridal carry, his arms wrapped firmly around the other boy's frame to support his weight. Bokuto then began to carefully make his way up the stairs, each step taken with care to ensure Akaashi's comfort. He carried him all the way to Akaashi's room, pushing the door open with his foot and entering the room. He laid Akaashi on the bed, covering him with the blanket. He steps back and admires Akaashi, a huge smile on his face. Finn. November 21st, 4:30 p.m. Iowa. The pair were at Iwaizumi's house. Oikawa was waiting in Iwaizumi's room, while the latter was in the bathroom. Hurry up! Oikawa, already comfortably settled on the bed, had a bowl of popcorn resting on his lap, which he periodically munched from. In one hand, he held the remote control, ready to control the movies they were about to watch. Iwaizumi entered the room after leaving the bathroom, walking over to the bed and lowering himself down onto the mattress next to Oikawa, who looked up at him with a smile. A heavy sigh escaped Iwaizumi as he leaned back, his body sinking into the pile of pillows. The muscles in his arms relaxed as he placed them behind his head, a look of defeated resignation on his face. He knew there was no point in protesting anymore, not when Oikawa was stubbornly set on having this movie marathon. His gaze flicked over to Oikawa, who was busying himself with starting up the movie. About halfway through the movie, Oikawa remembered the challenge he came up with. He started off with a couple quiet yawns here and there, which Iwaizumi took note of. Minutes later, he fell backwards into his fake slumber. He then shifted his weight and slumped across Iwaizumi's chest. His act was almost perfect, almost. If only Iwaizumi didn't know him so well, it would have been perfect. All it took was a quick glance for Iwaizumi to recognize that Oikawa was fake sleeping. He chuckled to himself before moving the popcorn bowl off the bed. He gently guided Oikawa's head to his lap, acting nonchalant about the whole situation. So you don't miss anything. Iwaizumi explained what was happening in the rest of the movie to Oikawa whilst playing in his hair. Oikawa, on the other hand, was a blushing mess. He loved the way Iwaizumi's hands felt in his hair. By the way, I know you're faking it. Oikawa stared up at Iwaizumi, letting out a dramatic sigh, clearly exasperated. He slowly turned his head, looking up at Iwaizumi. In response, Iwaizumi couldn't help but chuckle upon seeing the defeated expression on Oikawa's face. There was a hint of amusement in his eyes as he regarded his melodramatic friend. Finn. Atsumu and Sakusa were like polar opposites, Atsumu being the energetic extrovert and Sakusa being the calm introvert. So nobody would have expected that Atsumu would be able to get Sakusa's number at the All-Japan Youth Training Camp. They've only managed to talk over the phone because of their city differences. Over the course of the past few months, they had steadily become closer to one another. November 22nd, to 25 a.m., private messages between Atsumu and Sakusa. Omi. 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 Sakusa is online. Why in the world are you up at 2 in the morning? I can't sleep. And what does that have to do with me? Can we call? Sakusa is offline. Omi. Omi, please. Sakusa is online. You're telling me you want to call right now? Yes, please. Side eye. Incoming call from Sakusa. Atsumu balanced his phone on the pillow that was neatly placed in front of him on the bed. He then reached up and tapped his phone screen, answering the call that had come in. The soft glow of the screen lit up his face in the dim room as he settled back into a comfortable position on the bed. Sakusa's face appeared on the screen of Atsumu's phone, and he looked far from happy. The early hour of the morning had clearly taken its toll on him. His eyes were half-lidded, and irritation was written all over his face. He looked like he would rather still had been curled up under his blankets instead of having a video call at this ungodly hour. Whoa, you don't look so good. Oh, really? Sakusa said sarcastically, earning a quiet chuckle from Atsumu. Sorry for waking you up, but I need someone to keep me company. And it had to be me. Of course, why wouldn't I want to talk to my favorite person ever? Atsumu said, his voice laced with a hint of flirtation that had become a common occurrence in their conversations. Sakusa simply rolled his eyes, used to Atsumu's attempts to get a rise out of him, and ignored the comment, not giving it a second thought. Over time, he had grown accustomed to Atsumu's flirty comments and considered it more of a habitual behavior rather than anything to take seriously. Whatever. Want to hear what Komori said to me earlier? Do. Then, Sakusa started to talk. He had slowly been picking up Atsumu's talking habits. Atsumu scrolled through past messages whilst listening. He noticed a message from Oikawa. Fall asleep on your crush's shoulder. Atsumu frowned slightly. He couldn't really do the challenge due to the distance between them. He suddenly got the idea to change the challenge a bit. Instead, he was going to fall asleep over the phone. Atsumu, are you listening? What? Sakusa narrowed his eyes at Atsumu, his irritation even more evident on his face. He already wasn't the hugest fan of talking, but being ignored while talking was even worse. I'm too tired to repeat myself. As soon as Atsumu saw Sakusa's grumpy expression on his phone screen, a small chuckle escaped him. They fell into a comfortable silence afterwards, both staring at each other's faces on their respective screens. Oh, Omi. Yesterday, during volleyball practice, Osamu tried to fight me. I didn't even do anything wrong. Well, I did eat most of his lunch, but it's never that serious. Atsumu launched into an animated conversation, his words coming quickly and excitedly as he spoke. He became so engrossed in the conversation that he hardly noticed Sakusa begin to doze off on the other end of the call. Once Atsumu finally finished talking, he looked back towards his phone screen and saw a sleeping Sakusa. Atsumu, in a complete trance, just watched Sakusa sleep, a faint smile on his face. He didn't bother to complain about not completing the challenge. Atsumu took a screenshot.